The words my daughter-in-law spoke into that phone made my blood run cold. Because the woman my only son married, the girl I'd welcomed into my home with open arms, had just revealed the most horrifying plan I'd ever heard. And I was standing right outside her hotel room door when she said it. My name is Eleanor Hartley, and I'm 67 years old. For the past 40 years, I built and ran one of Chicago's most respected art galleries. I know how to read people. I know when someone is genuine, and I know when they're performing. Jessica, my daughter-in-law, had been performing since the day David brought her home 3 years ago. But I'd convinced myself I was being paranoid, a protective mother who couldn't accept that her son had found love. I'd ignored every instinct that told me something was wrong with that girl's too bright smile and her overly sweet compliments about my hair, my home, my late husband's art collection. I'd ignored it all because David seemed happy. And after losing his father 5 years ago, I just wanted my son to be happy. Then came the wedding announcement, a destination wedding in Maui. Jessica's dream, she said. The ceremony would take place at an exclusive resort, 200 guests, a budget that made my gallery's annual operating costs look modest. $500,000, maybe more. David sat across from me in my living room, holding Jessica's hand, both of them looking at me with hopeful eyes. "Mom, we know it's a lot," he began. "But it's a once-in-a-lifetime event," Jessica finished, squeezing his hand. "And David and I, we've been talking. We want you there for the whole experience. Not just the wedding day, but the 2 weeks leading up to it. The planning, the preparations. It would mean everything to have you there, Eleanor." She called me Eleanor, never Mom. I'd noticed that. But I smiled anyway. "It sounds wonderful," I said carefully. "When were you thinking?" 3 months from now. And Mom." David leaned forward. "We were hoping you might help with the costs, as your gift to us. I know Dad left you well taken care of, and Jessica and I were still building our careers." There it was. My late husband had indeed left me comfortable. A $2 million estate, the gallery, our home in Lincoln Park. David knew this. Of course he knew. "Let me think about it," I told them. Jessica's smile tightened just slightly, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, take all the time you need. We just think it would be so special. And Eleanor, you could come early. Relax. Get pampered. Think of it as a vacation. You work so hard at the gallery. When was the last time you really took time for yourself?" She was good. I had to give her that, making it sound like she was doing me a favor. 2 days later, I told them yes. I'd pay for the wedding. And yes, I'd come to Maui 2 weeks early. Why not? Jessica was right about one thing: I hadn't taken a real vacation in years. And maybe, just maybe, spending time with her would help me understand what David saw in her. Maybe I could learn to love her like a daughter. God, I was a fool. The resort was spectacular. My ocean view suite had floor-to-ceiling windows, a private balcony overlooking the Pacific, and a bathroom larger than my first apartment. Jessica had booked it for me herself. "Only the best for you, Eleanor," she'd said, hugging me at the airport with what felt like genuine warmth. The first 2 days were actually pleasant. We had spa appointments together, we reviewed flower arrangements, we sampled cakes. Jessica laughed at my stories about running the gallery. She asked thoughtful questions about David's childhood. She played the role perfectly. But I'm an art expert. I know the difference between an original and a forgery. And something about Jessica's performance felt just slightly off, like a painting with colors that didn't quite match the period it claimed to be from. On the third night, I couldn't sleep. The time difference, I told myself. I got up around 2 in the morning, thinking I'd go down to the business center to print my return boarding pass. I liked having a paper copy. Call me old-fashioned. Jessica's suite was 3 doors down from mine on the same floor. We joked about being neighbors. As I walked past her room, I heard her voice through the door. She was on the phone, speaking in a tone I'd never heard from her before. Sharp, cold. Nothing like the sweet girl who'd been showing me wedding favors that afternoon. I stopped walking. I shouldn't have listened. I know that. But something in her voice made me freeze. "No, she already signed the first check," Jessica was saying. $500,000, cleared yesterday, but that's not enough. The life insurance David has her listed on, that's $2 million. Plus the estate, the gallery, the house. We're talking about setting ourselves up for life. My hand found the wall. I felt like I might fall. "The wedding is in 11 days, Jessica continued. "It has to happen before then. An accident. Natural. She's what, 67? 68? Women her age, they fall. They have heart attacks. Especially on vacation when they're stressed and drinking and trying to keep up with people half their age. I couldn't breathe. The balcony is perfect, she said. I already checked. The railing has a loose section. All it would take is her leaning against it at the wrong spot, especially after a few glasses of champagne. 5-story fall onto the rocks. There wouldn't be much left to question. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. Stop worrying, Jessica snapped. David's on board. He was the one who suggested inviting her early. Get her comfortable, relaxed, trusting. She already loves playing the generous mother of the groom. This morning she was talking about maybe giving us the down payment on a house as an additional wedding gift. She's practically throwing money at us. A laugh, cold and sharp as glass. I know. It's almost too easy. David felt guilty for about 5 minutes, but I reminded him about the gallery. Once she's gone, he inherits everything. We can sell it, sell the house, take the insurance money. We could be living in Manhattan within the year. No more scraping by in that tiny apartment. She was quiet for a moment, listening. The lawyer said once the death certificate is issued, the insurance pays out within 60 days. We'd have the money before summer, and there's no way anyone would suspect anything. Elderly woman on vacation, tragic accident. Happens all the time. My son. My David. The boy I'd raised alone after his father died. The child I'd worked 70-hour weeks for, putting him through private school, through Northwestern, through every opportunity I could give him. He wanted me dead for my money. I walked back to my room on legs that didn't feel like my own. I locked the door, checked the balcony, and yes, there was a section of railing that moved when I touched it. Just slightly. Just enough. I sat on the bed and I didn't cry. I'd done enough crying when my husband died. Instead, I thought. I planned. Because Jessica had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. She'd seen a 67-year-old woman who ran an art gallery. Someone soft, someone easy. She'd forgotten that you don't survive 40 years in the Chicago art world by being soft. You don't build a multi-million-dollar business by being easy to manipulate. You learn to spot forgeries. You learn to negotiate. You learn when to smile and when to strike. And she'd just declared war on the wrong woman. The next morning, I put on my best performance. I met Jessica for breakfast and complimented her dress. I smiled when she showed me the final seating chart. I nodded enthusiastically when she suggested we go jewelry shopping for her wedding earrings. I'm feeling a little tired, I told her around noon. I think I might skip the beach this afternoon. Maybe just rest in my room. Her eyes lit up. Just for a moment. Of course. You should relax, Eleanor. Take it easy. Can I bring you anything? Some wine from the resort shop? They have this lovely rosé. That would be sweet of you, I said. She brought me the bottle personally. 2 glasses, she said, in case I wanted company later. I thanked her and closed the door. Then I poured both glasses down the sink and ordered room service with my own credit card. I needed help. I couldn't do this alone. And I certainly couldn't go to David. The question was, who to trust? The resort staff? No. They'd known Jessica longer than they'd known me. The local police? With what evidence? A conversation I'd overheard? A loose railing that could be coincidental? That evening, there was a cocktail party for the wedding party. I went because not going would seem suspicious. I stood in the corner, sipping sparkling water that everyone assumed was champagne, watching Jessica work the room. She was good with people, charming. She had David's friends laughing, his cousins eating out of her hand. You look like you're analyzing a painting. I turned. The woman next to me was about 35, holding a camera with a professional-looking lens. She had warm brown eyes and a wry smile. I'm Mika, she said, the photographer. Well, one of them. Jessica hired 3 of us because apparently one perspective isn't enough to capture her vision. She made air quotes with her fingers. Something in her tone made me look at her more carefully. You don't like her. I don't trust her, Mika corrected. Sorry, is she your friend? Relative? Daughter-in-law, I said. To be. Mika's expression shifted. Sympathy. Understanding. Eleanor, right? The groom's mother. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. No, I said slowly. Tell me why you don't trust her. Mika glanced around, then moved closer. I shot an engagement session for her and another guy. About 2 years ago. She was engaged to him. Wealthy real estate developer. The wedding was going to be at his family's estate in Connecticut. My heart started beating faster. What happened? 3 weeks before the wedding, he broke it off. Found out she'd been forging his signature on credit cards. She'd racked up nearly $200,000 in debt in his name. Custom jewelry, designer clothes, spa treatments, all stuff she returned after charging it, pure cash grab. I stared at her. He didn't press charges because his family wanted to avoid the publicity, but he made sure every vendor on their wedding list knew what she'd done. That's why I was surprised when she contacted me for this wedding. Either she didn't remember me, or she figured I wouldn't say anything. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked quietly. Mika met my eyes. "Because I've been watching her this week. The way she looks at your son when he's not looking. The way she talks about money. The way she touches things in this resort like she's pricing them. I've seen it before, and I saw how she looked at you when you arrived. I don't know what she's planning, but Eleanor." She paused. "Be careful. I made a decision. I need to show you something. Can you come to my room?" 20 minutes later, Mika stood on my balcony, carefully examining the loose railing section. She took photos from multiple angles. "This was loosened deliberately," she said. "Recently. See these scratches on the bolts? Someone used a wrench." Then I told her what I'd overheard. Everything. Mika's face went pale. "We need to call the police, right now." "And tell them what? That I overheard a phone conversation? That there's a loose railing? Jessica will say I'm a jealous mother trying to sabotage the wedding. David will side with her. I need proof. Real proof." Mika was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at me with something like respect. "What do you need? Can you record video discreetly? Like, hidden camera style?" She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Eleanor, I'm a photographer. I have cameras you wouldn't believe. Cameras that look like pens, like buttons, like phone chargers. What did you have in mind?" We worked through the night. Mika brought equipment from her rental car. We planned, we strategized. And slowly, I began to feel something I hadn't felt since overhearing that phone call. Hope. The next day I played my part. The grateful mother-in-law. I wore the camera button Mika had given me. It recorded everything. Jessica suggesting we have lunch on my balcony. Jessica standing next to that railing, touching it casually, testing its give. Jessica mentioning how beautiful the view was, how you could just lean right over and see the rocks below. It was all on camera. That night, Mika and I set up a more sophisticated operation. A camera hidden in the smoke detector in my room. A microphone in the flower arrangement. We needed Jessica to say something incriminating where we could record it clearly. So I took a risk. I invited Jessica to my room for a mother-daughter talk. Told her I wanted to discuss what I might give them as an additional gift. Maybe help with a house down payment, like we'd mentioned. She came immediately. Sat on my couch, all smiles and gratitude. "Jessica," I said carefully, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course, Eleanor. Anything. Do you love my son?" Her smile didn't waver, but something flickered in her eyes. "What kind of question is that?" "Of course I love David. I'm marrying him." "Because sometimes," I continued, watching her face, "I get the feeling that this wedding, this whole thing, it's more about the event than the marriage. More about the appearance than the commitment." "Eleanor," her voice got cooler, "I understand you might be feeling protective. David is your only child. But I assure you, I heard you," I said quietly. 3 nights ago. On the phone. Talking about my balcony railing. About making my death look like an accident. The change in her expression was instant. The mask dropped. What I saw underneath was cold and calculating and completely devoid of the warmth she'd been performing for weeks. "Did you?" she said flatly. "Well, that's unfortunate." She stood up, walked to the door, checked that it was locked from the inside. She'd done it so casually when she came in, I'd barely noticed. Now it felt ominous. "Here's the thing, Eleanor," Jessica said, turning back to me. "It's your word against mine, and I'm a 29-year-old bride planning her dream wedding. You're a bitter old woman who can't accept that her son has moved on. Who do you think David will believe?" "You'd be surprised," I said. "No, I wouldn't. I've been cultivating David for 3 years. I know exactly how to make him see things my way. By tomorrow, you'll be on a plane back to Chicago, and we'll tell everyone you had a mental health episode. Too much stress, too much grief, maybe early dementia. Very sad." She moved closer. I didn't move. And you know what the really beautiful part is? Jessica smiled. Even after you're gone, David will still get everything. It might take longer. We might have to wait for natural causes. But we're young. We can be patient. And you just gave us the perfect excuse to cut you out of the wedding entirely. David's already worried about you. I'll just confirm his fears. Are you finished? I asked. She blinked. What? I asked if you're finished, because I want to make sure you said everything you needed to say, for the record. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, set it on the table. The recording app was clearly visible, running. Had been running since she entered the room. Jessica's face went white. You see, Jessica, you made a mistake. You assumed that because I'm 67 I must be technically incompetent, but I ran a business in the 21st century. I know how to use my phone. She lunged for it. I was ready. I pulled it back and stood up. That's not the only copy, I said. It's backed up to the cloud. Mika has access. So does my lawyer. And in about 30 seconds, Resort Security is going to knock on that door. Because Mika is downstairs right now, showing them the video footage of you deliberately loosening my balcony railing yesterday afternoon. Right on cue, someone knocked. Hard. Security, open the door. Jessica looked at me with pure hatred. David will never forgive you for this. Maybe not, I said. But he'll be alive to make that choice. Which is more than you were planning to leave me. I opened the door. What happened next was swift and efficient. Resort Security held Jessica while local police were called. Mika arrived with her laptop, showing the footage she'd compiled. Jessica on my balcony with tools. Jessica's face as I confronted her. And most damning, the recording of her admitting to the whole plan. Where's David? I asked Mika quietly. Beach bar. He doesn't know yet. I need to be the one to tell him. She nodded. I'll come with you, as a witness. David was exactly where Mika said he'd be, sitting alone at the bar, looking at the sunset. He looked so much like his father at that moment. Same profile, same way of holding a beer bottle. David, I said. He turned, smiled. Mom, where have you been? Jessica said you weren't feeling well. I need to talk to you. It's important. His smile faded. What's wrong? You look. Mom, what happened? So I told him. Not everything. Not the part about him being involved. I couldn't. Not yet. I told him about overhearing Jessica's phone call, about the balcony railing, about the confrontation. With every word, I watched my son's face. I watched confusion turn to disbelief, turn to horror. No, he said. No, that's not. Jessica wouldn't. David. I took his hand. I have recordings. Video. Her own words. I don't believe you, he whispered, but his eyes said something different. Did you know? I asked. Needed to know. David, please. Did you know what she was planning? He looked at me. Really looked at me. And I saw my boy again. Not the 30-year-old man who'd gotten engaged to a con artist. The child who used to tell me everything. Who used to hold my hand crossing the street. She said. He stopped. Started again. A few months ago she asked me about your will, about what would happen if something happened to you. I thought she was just being practical. Planning for the future. She said smart couples talked about these things. David. And then she mentioned how much the wedding was costing. How it would be easier if we had more resources. How your estate would eventually come to me anyway. She said, wouldn't it be better to have it now, while we're young enough to enjoy it? He was crying now. I told her that was a horrible thing to say. We had a huge fight. She apologized. Said she was stressed about money. I thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't, I said gently. Last week she asked me about your life insurance. Who was listed as the beneficiary? I thought. He looked sick. God, Mom, I thought it was weird, but I told her anyway. I told her it was me. $2 million if anything happened to you. David, did she ever talk about this trip specifically? About anything happening to me here? He shook his head. Then stopped. Wait. She asked me to make sure your suite had a balcony. She said you loved ocean views, that it would make you happy. I didn't think. I pulled him into a hug. He was shaking. I didn't know, he sobbed into my shoulder. Mom, I swear I didn't know she was planning to hurt you. I would never. You have to believe me. I believe you, I said. And I did. I knew my son. He was weak. He was too easily influenced, but he wasn't a murderer. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They arrested Jessica at the resort. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud. The list was long. She screamed for David as they took her away. Screamed that I was lying, that I was jealous, that I was trying to ruin her life. David stood next to me and watched them put her in the police car. He didn't say a word. The wedding obviously was canceled. I spent the next 3 days giving statements to police. The resort refunded most of the costs, given the circumstances. David stayed in Maui for another week, talking to lawyers, to investigators, to therapists. Mika stayed too. She'd already been paid for 2 weeks of work, and she said she wanted to make sure we were okay. We had coffee every morning. She showed me her photography portfolio. I told her about the art world. We became friends, real friends. "You saved my life," I told her one evening as we watched the sunset from the resort restaurant, the same view I'd almost been pushed from. "You saved your own life," she corrected. "I just provided technical support." "Will you come visit me in Chicago?" I asked. "I have a guest room, and there's a photographer position opening at my gallery. If you're interested," she smiled. "Eleanor, are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance, same thing you gave me." Jessica was extradited back to Illinois. It turned out she had outstanding warrants in 3 states: fraud, identity theft. The Connecticut incident Mika had mentioned was just the beginning. Jessica Martinez wasn't even her real name. The trial was 6 months later. David testified against her, told them about the conversations he'd dismissed as stress, the life insurance questions, the will discussions. The prosecutor called it a clear pattern of financial exploitation and premeditated murder. The jury took 4 hours to convict. 25 years for attempted murder. Another 10 for fraud and conspiracy. She'd be eligible for parole in 30 years. She'd be almost 60 by then. The same age she'd called me old. David moved back home with me for a while. He needed time, space, therapy. We both did. We talked about everything: his father's death, my loneliness, his desire to please Jessica, my blindness to the warning signs. "I just wanted you to be happy," I told him one night. "I wanted you to have what your father and I had. What you and Dad had was real," he said. "What I had with Jessica, I don't even know what that was. I loved her, or I thought I did. But I think I was in love with who she was pretending to be." "That's still real pain," I said. "Don't dismiss it." He looked at me. "How are you so understanding? She tried to kill you." "She didn't succeed. And I got something out of it." I smiled. "I got my son back. And I got Mika." Mika had indeed taken the job at the gallery. She was brilliant at it. Her photographer's eye translated perfectly to curating art. Within 3 months, she'd reorganized our entire contemporary section and brought in 2 new artists who became instant bestsellers. She was also 35 and single and had no family in Chicago, so when Thanksgiving came around, I invited her to our house. "You don't have to," she said. "I know it's family time." "You are family," I told her. "You're the daughter I chose, just like I chose David. Blood doesn't make family, choice does." She hugged me. "Thank you, Eleanor." At Thanksgiving dinner, David raised his glass. "To Mom," he said, "the strongest person I know, and to Mika, who helped save her life, and to second chances. And to not trusting people with loose balcony railings," I added. We all laughed. It felt good to laugh again. Later that night, after Mika had gone home and David was asleep in his old room, I stood on my actual balcony in my Lincoln Park home. The railing was solid, steady, safe. I thought about Jessica in prison. I thought about how close I'd come to dying, how easy it would have been to dismiss my instincts, to convince myself I was being paranoid. I thought about how Jessica had seen a 67-year-old woman and assumed weakness. She'd forgotten that women my age didn't survive this long by being weak. We survived by being smart, by being observant, by knowing when to smile and when to fight, and most importantly, by never underestimating ourselves just because someone else does. I have my son back. I have Mika. I have my gallery, my home, my life. Jessica has a prison cell and 3 decades to think about what happens when you mistake grace for weakness. I'd say justice was served. But more than that, I'd say I got exactly what I told Jessica I would get. I got the last word. And unlike her, I'm still here to say it.